Do you ever feel overwhelmed? Not by anything in particular, but just life. The journey of life can be daunting between working to pay the bills, growing your relationships to keep your family afloat. And then, where does that leave time for yourself and your personal health? Welcome to the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast, where we are all about juggling and managing all of your responsibilities to be by your side in growing through it all. This brand is here to help you achieve your goals. Whether they are personal and emotional goals you set for yourself, business goals you want to hit in your career, or physical and nutritional goals you want to accomplish to be a healthier version of yourself. Whatever your goals are, stay tuned for tips and tricks to make accomplishing them easier for you. Each episode will help you significantly improve in one aspect of your life or another.
Hey, Facebook family. It's me, Caitlin, with the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. And I know you're probably wondering, wow, we haven't seen you in a while. But yes, the podcast continues. And if you have missed an episode, they are all readily available on YouTube. And if you want to subscribe with your phone, maybe you have an Android or an iPhone, all of the podcast episodes are on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and then they are on Spotify as well if you are an Android user. So today's podcast is going to be all about just whenever God speaks and just three major testimonies that I have in my life about that. And one of them is like when my relationship with God was non-existent. So I guess you can call that the universe or manifestation, because I know there's a lot of people that believe in that and there's power in it. So I'm going to take you back to my story whenever I want to say I was 11 when this happened. And like I said, my relationship with God was not even there, but I listened to that intuitive instinct or whatever it was that I thought back then, and now I know it is. But these three major examples are huge. One of them's recent, one of them's way back then, and then one of them's kind of in the middle, I guess you could say, my college days. So I'm super excited to talk about that today before we head out to our date night. And I don't know, every time I record a podcast, it's normally right before date night. That's whenever I have the help, so I can get it done. But just for recording reasons, welcome to the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast, where we are all about personal growth and leveling up in life. So each podcast episode is about growth in your spiritual life, business, in your career, and your finances. Maybe it's your physical health and nutrition that you want to get better at, or just relational health and marriage and how to better yourself. So today's podcast is all about your spiritual journey, or bettering yourself with manifestations, or listening to that intuitive voice that you hear speaking to you and not neglecting it, because there is power in it. So I'm going to share with you three major personal examples of that and how you could apply that to your life as well, because we all have that voice in us that tells us to dream bigger, or that tells us a little bit of positivity and how we can take action steps on that. But we also have that negative voice in us as well. And sometimes that negative voice can speak louder than that positive voice. So then it becomes confusing on which voice should we listen to. So this podcast episode is all about learning to listen to that positive voice and what that means in your life as far as getting you to your goals or to your dreams. Give me some likes, some hearts if you're watching this on Facebook Live, or some comments in the chat so I can know that you can hear me loud and clear. And I will go ahead and get started. So, podcast episode is titled When He Speaks. And for me personally, right now where I'm at in my life, that's whenever God speaks to me, or maybe he'll speak to my husband, or sometimes he will speak to somebody that will relay the message to me, and then I can decide whether or not I'm going to take action on whatever it is that he spoke. And sometimes, we get this revelation of what it is, and it doesn't feel like that in the moment. I know whenever we let worry or we let doubt or just negativity creep in, whatever it is that has been spoken over us can seem impossible. So we have to believe in whatever it is that we has been spoken to us regardless of what we see in the physical. One example that I didn't even think about is whenever I had Lincoln, he was about 2 years old and we wanted to try for another child. So I went through a miscarriage, and then it was tough whenever people told me it's okay, try again, or this happens for a reason. And I remember a good friend of mine took me to her church because that's all she wanted for her anniversary, was she wanted me and my husband to go to church with her. And at church, they told me that I was going to have another baby. And in that moment, I didn't believe it, because I had just gone through the miscarriage, and I was just in a very negative space. But a month later, that's whenever I had a positive pregnancy test for our baby girl, London. So I wish I could have told myself in that moment, just have a little bit more faith, believe, and just had more joy going through it, because I really wasn't going through it in the most joyful spirit. But that's not even included in the 3 major examples that I want to share with you. But whenever you go through certain things in life and you know you should go through it with a positive attitude, let's be real, we're human, so it's hard to go through those things and believe that positive outcome is going to happen. Whenever I met my husband, this is testimony number 1. The biggest testimony is whenever I met my husband, I said that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom to our puppies, Snickers and Scooby at the time. And we were doing a network marketing business, but we knew that we wanted to create wealth. We knew we wanted to be business owners. We were broke college students at the time, so the capabilities of that actually happening, it seemed impossible looking at our bank account then. But we believed that we were going to make that dream a reality. And here we are today. We're both stay-at-home parents who have their own businesses. Well, it's a business portfolio, and we're seeking other investments currently. So I'm thankful that even though we were building a network marketing business and we didn't see the money then, I'm thankful that we kept that dream and that vision alive in front of us to get us to where we are today. And to piggyback off of that story, something even bigger is whenever we were living in Louisiana a few months ago, we just felt very stagnant in our business growth, in our personal growth, and God gave me this vision, okay? Didn't even have this on stage, ready for this podcast, but let me grab it, because God gave me a clear vision of a plant. So whenever you take a plant and you put it in a pot and it grows, it only grows to whatever size pot you put it in. And God told me that He wanted to grow me even more, so I needed to be uprooted and planted in a bigger pot. But I love Louisiana. Louisiana is my home. So whenever God spoke that to me a Sunday on church, I was like, God, I'm going to make my pot whatever it is. Like, I'm good here. But that vision kept coming to me of a pot, a plant in a pot, and the growth only being capable to whatever's holding it. So I knew that I had to be uprooted from Louisiana and planted in a bigger pot. So whenever I told this to my husband, he said that he was getting the same kind of feeling, and he knew it was God speaking to him. We just didn't know what did that pot look like. What was that new area that we were going to move to from Louisiana? So we kept talking about it, and God put on both of our hearts, Orlando was that new move, and there was going to be so much growth in Orlando that we wouldn't even be able to fathom it. So here we are today, living in Orlando, Florida, walking in that growth that God prefaced for us. That's only Him who could do something like that. And it feels amazing walking in what He spoke over us. But no, it did not feel great being uprooted out of that pot to a new place where I had so many questions of the what ifs and who's going to do this. But God provided all of that, and He always will. So that's testimony number 1. Whenever He speaks, when you're obedient and you listen, just the amazing new heights that only He can take you. So backtrack a little bit further back in my life. Whenever I was in college, I was dating somebody for 5 years, okay? And when you're dating somebody, or whenever you're young especially, 5 years seems like a long time. So after dating this person for 5 years, we're at the point of college where, I'm getting ready to graduate and focusing on my career, and I started to have that entrepreneurial bug bite me. So I really was chasing my dreams. I'm reading books, I'm listening to podcasts, and I'm taking action steps to become an entrepreneur. And my partner, or for 5 years and still going to the club, still drinking beer on the weekends, and, not really wanting to spend quality time with one another. After 5 years, I evaluated that relationship and I prayed, and God told me to end the relationship because He had something greater for me. Now, in my mind, I'm dating this person for 5 years. I can just change him into who I want him to be, and maybe that's the thing that, God says is greater for me. I was trying to make it happen. Instead of listening to God and just breaking up with Him and pursuing whatever it is that God wanted for me, I was trying to take matters into my own hands. But after a few weeks of the tug of war with what God spoke to me and what I was trying to do, I finally let go and let God as far as my relationship goes. Okay? Cut that 5-year relationship off pretty much cold turkey. The partner was pretty much shocked about it. Like, tried to do everything that he could to get me back, but by that point, I was so firm on what God spoke to me that I wanted it so bad. Like, if God said that there's greater things for me as a woman, if God had a partner out there for me that was greater than the 5 years I put up with, I was here for it. Like, I started to read books about becoming a great wife and the power of a praying wife and different things to mold me into that wife that deserved an amazing husband. And as I was ending that relationship, I started to catch feelings for this business partner that I had for a while. But it was my business partner. So instead of pursuing him, I started telling God, like, man, if you want me to end it with this person that I've been with for 5 years, God, you give me somebody like that. You give me somebody like that business partner that I see. He opens doors, for women. I don't see that a lot. Or you give me somebody that's going to give me their jacket off their back when I'm cold, because that's a true Southern gentleman thing. Like, you don't see those things common in today's world. So I started getting bold in my prayers because God spoke clearly to me that He had something greater. So let me go to Him boldly with my request. And I did. And after I ended that 5-year relationship, God opened up the doors to give me what I prayed for. I prayed for somebody like that business partner, and that business partner is my husband today. So that was just a huge testimony in my life about whenever you let go of whatever baggage it is that you're holding on to, that you're trying to fix on your own and you're trying to make it happen your way, when you just listen to God, whenever He speaks, what He can do for you is way better than what you could try to do in a million years. And I remember just that moment in my life so clearly. And still to this day, like, I've been married to my husband for going on four years now. I'm still so thankful for that period of time where I had to let go of the baggage that I created on my own with my previous partner. And I'm still full of thanksgiving for the amazing husband that God has given me, because it's just a huge testimony of not only an answered prayer, but what happens whenever you listen and He speaks. That's just an amazing moment in my life that I wanted to share with you guys, because we all do that. Like, we may feel a certain type of way, or we may want greater things, but we stand in the way of reaching that because we doubt ourselves or we set those limits. And I remember letting go of that 5-year relationship. I literally changed my screensaver on my phone to just keep swimming, with good old Dory, because I didn't want my past toxicities or my past baggages to hold me back from the greater heights that I knew God wanted to take me. And I kind of had to do that same thing with the move from Louisiana to Florida, because God was very clear in telling me and my husband, no matter what we tried to do, we needed a change of environment for personal growth if we wanted that. And we could have easily stayed in Louisiana and been comfortable with where we're at and the businesses that we had running. But we wanted that growth, not only for ourselves, but to be able to give back to others and to show other people they can do it too. So whenever I changed my screensaver on my phone in that relationship and said, just keep swimming, that's the exact same thing I had to do in this new season of my life, leaving Louisiana, moving to Florida. No matter the questions that I didn't have answered, or no matter the new boundaries I was going to enter, I had to just keep swimming and not retreat. And walking in that growth that's come from it, it feels great. So thank you, God. And the last story that I wanted to share goes way back into my childhood. So you saw whenever God spoke in my adult life. You saw whenever God spoke, or you heard whenever God spoke in my college life or teenage years. But this is whenever God spoke to me, and I guess you could say, in adolescence, kind of almost a teenager, but not really. And I didn't have the relationship with God like I do now. So a little bit of background for those of you guys who haven't read my first book, or maybe it's your first time tuning into a podcast. Whenever I was 9, my dad, he died, and he had a heart attack whenever I was sleeping in the same bed as him. So I woke up and he was dead. So that was a pretty traumatic event that I went through as a young child. And then after that, my mom, she got sick, so I didn't really have the best relationship like I do now with my mother, so I didn't have much to lean on. And like I said, my relationship with God was not there, so it's not like I could just get my strength from him at the time intentionally, because I didn't even know what that looked like. So as a young child, going through all of that and just, dealing with typical pressures that you get in junior high and then high school, I became suicidal because I suffered from depression, just all of that snowballing. So after I became suicidal, I had to go to a hospital for a few days, and coming home, I remember vividly, kind of like those the episodes or the parts on a movie where the person's just looking out the window and the narrator's giving their thoughts. Well, I remember just looking out the window and it's raining and I'm already feeling bad, I'm depressed, but God told me, now I know it was God, but I heard that there's greater things ahead. Everything that I'm going through, it's not for no reason. It's not going to be wasted. So to just continue to push through what I was going through, and it was going to be not only okay, but better than I could ever imagine. Okay, so after going to the suicide hospital and going through all the depression and all of that, I remember hearing that inside of me. And trust me, when you're depressed, you can't come up with these thoughts on your own. So after I heard that everything was going to be okay, and I was going to turn into somebody that was great and use all these bad things in life to help other people, and it was going to turn an ugly situation into something amazing, that was my motivation from then on. No matter what the circumstances looked like around me as a teenager, I knew that greater things were ahead. So, looking back on my life right now, I am so thankful that the Holy Spirit whispered that to me at such a young age, because that's what's kept me pushing in hard moments. And this isn't a podcast where, wow, everything's unicorns and rainbows and it's great. No, life still happens, things still occur, and we still naturally suffer with negative thoughts. We're human. But I'm always brought back to those moments where God said something was greater on the other side if you can just push through, and I got to it. Even though whenever I went through it, whenever I was younger, I didn't even have a relationship with God. So I just heard instinctively something within me said that everything that I went through was going to be used for something greater. I listened to that, even though I had no idea where it came from. It gave me positive vibes, you could say. It gave me strength for the positivity, and it helped me from that moment on turn an ugly situation into something beautiful. So those are 3 just key points in my life of whenever I was going through something and God spoke, or I heard it and then I was obedient, walked through it to get to the other side, to experience the joy and the positive, not even rewards, but just value that they have lying on the other side because I went through it. So this is my encouragement to you. No matter what it is that you're going through, keep going through it and just listen whenever God speaks, because sometimes He speaks to us through other people. Like I shared earlier on the podcast, whenever my friends brought me to their church home and a few members of the church said I was going to be pregnant again. That's my rainbow baby. That's London. Whenever I look at her blue eyes, I see my grandfather that passed away at the time, and it just brings me such joy and hope, because I remember the hurt that I had from the loss, but then what God spoke, and then how that came about. And there's so much beauty in that. So for you, just continue to push through, continue to listen to that, whether it's spoken through other people or you hear it inside of you. And sometimes whenever we hear it inside of us, we have to remember, okay, we have a lot of things that speak to us, okay? We have our own personal thoughts, and sometimes they can be crazy. We have the enemy who's trying to pull us astray and distract us, and then we have the Holy Spirit speaking to us. So whenever you do hear a little whisper to yourself, or you do catch a thought, go into prayer and just say, look, is this me? Is this the enemy? Or is this the Holy Spirit trying to give me some direction? I hope this podcast gave you some direction, correction, inspiration, motivation, or something. And if so, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast on YouTube. YouTube. Or check out the Facebook group. We have one of those too, where you have like daily inspirational posts, different interactive things that we do together. And thank you so much for watching and listening. If you are on iTunes or Spotify, you guys take care. And I will try to put out a podcast. I've been trying once a week, and that was good until I had 2 kids, and I would try for once a month. And we are lucky if we do so. And remember, they always touch on something, whether it's business, spiritual growth, financial, relational. We're always about that growth. Take care.
Wow, how about that episode? I know you are motivated to kick your butt into gear and become a better version of yourself from this experience of the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. The crazy title of this podcast comes from the original personal development book series. Each book will transform you even more than listening to this podcast. Each book takes a deeper dive into how you can better yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and even spiritually. Continue your journey of personal growth by being a part of the amazing personal growth book series that is written in a fun, fiction way with in-depth journals concluding each chapter. What are you waiting for? Go order your book at www.kfoxworth.com and join the Facebook community in the private Facebook group named I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. You don't want to miss out on the full trifecta experience, including the books, the podcast, and the mastermind community in Facebook groups. Keep your personal growth burning desire on fire and be part of it all. It all starts here. So thanks for listening to the podcast, and stick around for more great episodes to keep you growing in all areas of life. You are killing it.